Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this last technical session of the European Hydrogen Research Days. And for the next hour and a half, we'll be talking about pre-normative research. PNR are extremely important for several reasons. I will name a few of them. First of all, it's to cover the knowledge gap that exists when introducing hydrogen technologies. Not everything should be derived from natural gas, for example. Second reason why PNR are critical, it's for defining adequate safety level, not too strict, not too laxist. Third one, it's because it ensures a level playing field for the industrial actors. And one last reason, it's because with the existence of norms, standards, this speed up the deployment of hydrogen solution in transport, in energy sector. This session will count on presentation from 4 different projects, 2 on transport, one on maritime, the other one on hydrogen refueling station, a third project about hydrogen appliances for home, and a fourth project about hydrogen injection into the gas grids. You will have the opportunity to ask questions to the speaker, and to do so, please use Slido. So go on Google, type Slido, S-L-I-D-O, then in front of the hashtag type clean hydrogen, select the session PNR, and then post your session. We will answer the question at the end of the 4 presentations. Let's go with the first project. Let's go on the water, on board the e-SHyIPS project that looked at hydrogen for passenger vessels in the maritime environment. And to explain to us what e-SHyIPS does, we have with us Brendan Sullivan from Politecnico di Milano. Brendan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for the introduction. And today we'll be taking the opportunity to present a little bit of an overview of the e-SHyIPS project. The e-SHyIPS is focusing on an ecosystemic knowledge and standards for hydrogen implementation on passenger ships. As Lionel mentioned, Brendan Sullivan at Politecnico di Milano. It's focusing, it's a project manager and coordinator. As we look at the overall project, we're very happy to be able to present this today. The project kicked off in January 2021 and will continue its course until December 24. We're currently a little over 75% of the stage in regards of implementation, marking significant progress in our overall journey. We've been fortunate to have a total project budget of around 2.5 million, with Clean Hydrogen Partnership contributing the maximum amount. And as I previously mentioned, this is being handled and coordinated by Politecnico di Milano with a large number of partners that we work with. So first, taking a look at our research units that are involved, we have, as mentioned, Politecnico di Milano, which is serving as the project coordinator and is recognized as a top university in Italy and in the EU, also involved within the port and bunkering scenarios and the vessel design. We're represented by VTT, which is a leading research and technology company in the Nordic countries based out of Finland. Cineca, which is one of the largest supercomputing centers in Europe, housed in Italy. And then we're also comprised of IDF, which is a company specializing in fire engineering and safety. Our industry partners, which are critical to the success of the overall activities, consist of Athena, which is a company committed towards technological advancement, primarily in the realm of hydrogen. We have the opportunity to have Protomotor Fuel Cell, which is a leading provider of fuel cell and hybrid systems, as well as Genova, which is a global maritime engineering company, Voikoski, which is a Finnish gas company, which fits very well with some of the work that we're doing. We have Demos, which is a further key player in the maritime industry. And as we mentioned, we're focusing on pre-normative research. So we also have an involvement of different class societies. To begin with, we have UNI, which is the Italian National Standardization Body. And we also have the opportunity to have DNV Hellas with us, which is a global quality assurance and risk management company, I think for those that are joining us today are familiar with. Lastly, we have the ship owners that I would like to give recognition to that we're working with, Levante Ferries, which is a leading ferry operator based out of Greece, as well as Danos Shipping Company and Shipworth, Damen RD&I, and Damen Global, which is a Dutch shipyard. Now, taking a closer look at the collaborative process of this project, as previously mentioned, we've had the privilege of working with 14 different partners from 7 European Union countries. Additionally, we have a fairly large advisory board that we've been able to put together that consists of roughly 21 members. Each of these members bring a unique perspective and level of expertise that helps in resolving some of the issues and challenges that we'll be talking about here a little bit further with as we move through with the slides. Our project is also connected to approximately 28 other projects with varying levels of communication, but this has been used to further expand the network and knowledge base in the realm of hydrogen. And this interconnectedness allows for real feedback from the policymakers and also the other researchers that are involved with hydrogen and pre-normative standards. We're also closely working with different certification bodies, such as DNV, which is one of the partners, but not excluding RINA and Lloyd's, and standardization bodies like UNI, Chinchemelec, and ISO. Our collaboration with IMO, the IGF Code Technical Commission, for hydrogen H2 updates, and the EU working groups, namely SVEM and SGMF. Our approach to the overall project is a bit of a bottom-up one, where we're working to analyze the regulatory needs and gaps from a design perspective, which allows us to identify and address issues at their root. This process is further enhanced by leveraging knowledge from the experimentation that's conducted within the project to ensure that our solutions are not only theoretically sound, but also practically effective and relevant to the advancement of PNR research. In the next slide, we'll delve a little bit further into the project and some of the basic objectives. So currently, the International Code of Safety for Ships using gases or low flashpoint fuels, commonly known as IGF code, primarily covers liquefied natural gas. However, a regulatory framework specifically applicable to hydrogen fuel cells or fueled ships is not yet available. There has been work to advance this with several draft documents that have been prepared over the past couple of months. But at present, the only existing approach is given by the IMO in terms of generic alternative design processes. And this process requires safety, reliability, dependability of hydrogen systems to be proven equivalent to those of traditional fuels and power generation systems. Our project aims to help overcome and fill this gap and contribute to the development of a goal-based regulatory framework on the use of hydrogen and hydrogen-based alternative fuels for waterborne transport. We'll talk a little bit about the 3 scenarios that we use here in a moment. And of course, the primary target here is with the International Maritime Organization and help to facilitate and broach the IGF update. By doing so, we hope that this will help pave the way and facilitate the sustainable and efficient exploitation of hydrogen within the maritime transport realm. A little bit on the actions that have been taken. We began the project as referenced in 21, and our project's deeply rooted in research and collaboration. And we've taken significant strides in connecting the relevant bodies and standards. Through this, we've mapped over 65 standards for hydrogen in non-maritime, as well as LNG and cryogenic vessels that could potentially be relevant to maritime applications. These different standards, both current and work in progress, serve as a valuable resource for our project, and has helped us that we'll talk about a little bit further in terms of the gaps identified. Additionally, we've identified 127 technical bodies at the EU and international level that are developing standards. So there is a large amount of information and knowledge and expertise that can be further enhanced to help persevere and push forward the quality and effectiveness of our work and also the work within the maritime industry. We have worked rather actively to establish a connection with Chinchemelec, JTC6, through UNI, which is CT056, which has helped facilitate a mutual exchange of information. We've presented at the June 2022 plenary meeting and also are invited to present at the 23 plenary meeting. So this facilitation has allowed us to not only share the information that we've collected, but also disseminate this to a larger, broader audience. We've also initiated connection with UNI CT030, which is focusing on aiming to reach the ISO Technical Committee 8 and Gentech 305. This connection will provide us with a deeper liaison with the IMO and also allow us to facilitate and leverage our additional advisory board member, the Norwegian Maritime Authority. Furthermore, we've included on our advisory board members from Chinchillik, RINA, and NMA, as previously mentioned, who are part of the subcommittee IMO CCC7, which provides us with another liaison with the IMO and a constant update on the current advancements that are taking place. In regards to the gaps, as mentioned, we were looking at the overall identification of approximately 98 gaps. 35 have been matched with current standards, and these are primarily covered in the areas of arrangement and location, equipment and components of FCH vessel systems, safety system design, materials and manufacturing, equipment components of FCH vessel systems, equipment and components for bunkering, fuel, materials and manufacturing, safety design, and safety system operating procedures. As we look at each of these individual units we identified in relation to the gaps, we've set forth to carry out and identify a series of experiments to help fill some of the knowledge gap that currently exists. This is done through the utilization of 3 different scenarios. These 3 scenarios were chosen to try to maximize and provide for the widest impact of the project and overall fulfillment of the PNR objectives. What we're looking at here is first a small scenario, which is a fast water bus operating on compressed hydrogen. And then we look at a medium scenario, Ropax ferry, which is based off of a Levante ferry at using a liquefied hydrogen. And then the large scenario, which is a small luxury cruise ship, which again is using liquefied hydrogen. So in the end, we have a low pressure compressed hydrogen and 2 liquefied hydrogen scenarios that we'll talk a little bit further in terms of their technical details in the next slide. But to try to fulfill the gaps, we're looking at these 4 areas in terms of ship design, safety system experiments, material and components experiments, and port and bunkering experiments. The 3 design cases, as I previously referenced, are intended to help try to maximize and allow for the widest possible application. And when we're looking at this, we can see that the small scenario is essentially focusing on inland navigation around 22 nautical mile round trip with a relatively low round trip energy demand of 780 kilowatt hours. This is using a 350 bar compressed hydrogen system. And the primary port location is either focusing on riverside or urban ports, which requires a tank refueling infrastructure via the refueling station. Looking at the medium scenario, we're looking at a first liquefied hydrogen vessel under our analysis. This is essentially focusing on a 40 nautical mile round trip. We're looking at approximately 2,300 kilograms per day. And for this, we're looking at mainland port, where we're focusing on the utilization of truck to ship in terms of the bunkering infrastructure. Finally, we have the large scenario. This large scenario is 120 nautical miles per day with a 65,000 kilowatt hour daily operational use. This scenario is using approximately 10,000 kilograms per 4 days. So this is a multi-day journey. And of course, we're looking at here is trying to exploit the utilization of a port facility or even an H2 valley to try to allow for a more sustainable and longevity fuel supply. In relation to the safety system experiments that have been identified as being fundamental to trying to fulfill some of the gaps, we recognize safety as a paramount aspect within the project, and we understand the inherent risks associated with hydrogen and hydrogen-based fuels. And so for our safety system design, this encompasses various aspects. These include the design of the discharge mast, which as an example, we can see over on the left-hand image with the blue figure. These include the design of the mast, the pressure relief system, as well as emergency shutdown procedures, explosion prevention measures, and fire and gas detection and alarm systems. We've also delineated hazardous area zones to further enhance the safety. And of course, we're looking at these, the dispersion of the discharge based off of the operating speed of these vessels during regular operation. We've also developed operating procedures for gas freeing, including explosion venting and managing gas links. These procedures are crucial to ensuring the safety operations and the handling for emergencies effectively. Our machinery safety system includes both a general arrangement and a hazardous area classification plan. We've also devised a hydrogen emergency discharge system, a measure for onboard dispersion, ventilation, and explosion. We can see an internal explosion taking place within the storage facility in the right-hand diagram. And in terms of the risk assessment, we've conducted a design assessment using the HAZOP, as well as the FMEACA, failure mode effects and criticality analysis. These methods help us to identify potential risks and devise appropriate mitigation measures moving forward. In terms of the tools with which we've been able to use and leverage for the advancement of these experiments, we've primarily made use of the design risk assessment, HAZOP and FMEAC, previously referenced, as well as CFD, simulations for emergency discharge, using RANS-based shear stress transports, and for ventilation path injection and explosion using FLAC FLAX. FLAX is used primarily for its industry readiness and large amount of available data that we can conform. These simulations have allowed us to predict and prepare for various scenarios according to the 3 different use cases that we have, the small, medium, and large, and have allowed us to prepare further enhancing safety of our design. As we look at the materials and components, building off of the work that's been done in terms of safety, our equipment and components for the fuel cell vehicle or vessels have been tested for various conditions. We've studied the effects of airside impurities as well as fuel side impurities. This has been done allowing the utilization of both VTT and protomotor, where we've been able to conduct both vibration, inclination, and salt spray tests, looking at the degradation of the stacks over time, including both the postmortem analysis. These lab tests that have been performed have been done both using a dynamic bench for FCH, where we conduct a variety of different tests, both on a multi-single cell. Tests have been carried out to study the performance of individual fuel cells. We've also tested the sulfur cross-linked EPDM materials for their suitability in our system. Lastly, we've employed weather chambers to simulate different environmental conditions and study their effects on the system. And these experiments not only ensure that the reliability and efficiency of those designs that are being used, but also contribute to the broader knowledge base on hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. Moving a little bit forward here, we'll take a look briefly at the port bunkering experiments. As referenced, we were focusing on the utilization of both compressed and liquefied hydrogen. For this, we're looking at not only the market needs, but the transportation capability strategies, specifically when we're looking at the medium scenario where we'll have more or less refilling within an urban environment, and we'll be using trucks for the delivery of liquefied hydrogen. The equipment and components bunkering, we've taken into consideration the sailing effects, both including the mechanical vibration, the roll, pressure, and thermal stresses. But we've been able to do this primarily to allow us to leverage the bunkering station feasibility of each of the 3 different scenarios, determine the stability of the vessels within the refueling process, as well as the component, the operating conditions and performance. These tools, in similarity to those previously mentioned, include the FMEACA, but also the introduction of the DNV Cosmos modeling, which allows for both dynamic and static analysis of scenarios or of vessels that are in maritime. The hull stability and motions and wave simulation have been performed using LinkoSim, which is developed in collaboration with Chineka, essentially allowing for the easy utilization and modeling of different dynamic parameters for the vessel hull. All things that progress, of course, have some challenges and lessons learned. In terms of these 3 points, we'll talk a little bit on the standard system design of different operational scenarios. Of course, these 3 scenarios are not encompassing of the entire industry, so this requires a large amount of advisory board inclusion and discussion, but also knowledge from cluster projects, specifically in regards to the liquefied hydrogen, which I think will be covered a little bit later in some other presentations today. The scaling of the knowledge from one experience to another, this essentially is allowing us to try to align experiments to IGF gaps. While there are a number of gaps that have been identified, it's not possible to fulfill and satisfy every gap, but we're trying to do so in the more or less the most effective way, progressing through a series of verification loops, both referencing the small, medium, and large scenario. Further, due to the lack of institutional standards, there's a lack of specific components, especially for the large vessel. And this has relied or forced us to rely quite heavily on the advisory board involvement since the early stage to evaluate different experimental assumptions, and also close proximity in relationship to other EU ongoing projects to help us scale from the small scenario all the way up to the large. Covering the exploitation, dissemination, and communication activities. Of course, we had the opportunity to be here today, and we are very grateful for that. We've also been focusing on trying to develop the strategic standardization plan for the IGF code update. This includes both the pre-normative plan proposal for the IGF code update and continual liaison with the ISO Technical Committee and IMO through our advisory board members, both RINA and the NMA. We are also focusing and working towards development of a roadmap for FCH passenger ships. This incorporates and encompasses both market best practice and value proposition models, bridging the 3 different scenarios that are included within this project. In terms of publications, the publications are freely available on our website, e-SHyIPS.com/publications, which we encourage any of those that are interested to please feel free to access. If there's any further questions, we can of course clarify. To date, we've been able to publish 8 scientific publications, including conference and journal, with 2 additional publications that are under review. And finally, we have a series of different events and workshops, and we'd like to promote these, of course. So if there's any interest, we again you can access it at e-SHyIPS.com/news-events-and-media-2. Sorry, it's not a shorter name, but this has allowed us to organize a series of different workshops focusing on the IGF code gap review, as well as H2 and yachting, and we're looking forward. Lastly, we'll show here just a few of the synergies with other projects and programs that we have. And with that, I would like to thank for the opportunity to present today and look forward to the roundtable and discussion shortly to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brendan. You have a clear target, International Maritime Organization, one clear document inside the so-called IGF code, standing for the Code of Safety for Ships Using Gases or Low Flash Point Fuel. You study this screening different scenario, different size of the vessel, from water bus up until cruise ships, different focus on the material, on the safety, etc. and etc. And I hope soon we will hear on how well the collaboration with the IMO is doing, and how you would help for this modification of the IGF code. Thanks.
We look forward to the opportunities, and thank you.
Thanks. Now it's time for we make a pause and we go out of the water, we come on the ground land, and like any vessel, a car, a bus, at some point you need to stop to refuel your vehicle. This is done at a hydrogen refueling station. Now, one clear advantage would be to put this hydrogen refueling point within existing stations or multi-fuel stations. We'll hear now from Dinko Durdevic from Hydrogen Europe about the project MultHyFuel. So the floor is yours, Dinko. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. Let me just share my screen, and please let me know when you see the presentation so I can move on. Hope everything is good. So thank you for the introduction, and just really shortly from my side, my name is Dinko. I represent Hydrogen Europe, as we are the project managers and coordinators of the project, with the longer title called Safety and Permitting for Hydrogen at MultHyFuel Retail, or shortly MultHyFuel.
Dinko, sorry for the
Yes.
interruption. You're not sharing your slides yet.
Okay, my apologies. Let me just try. Okay.
Perfect. We hear you.
Okay.
We see your slides. Thanks.
My apologies. Shortly about the project. It started in 2021 and it should last until September next year. We had a bit of delays due to COVID issues, but luckily we mitigated that problems. Most of the project cost comes from Clean Hydrogen Partnership contribution, with a small amount of other financial contribution from our partners. And we are actually coming close to the end of the project with 80% of implementation, which is mostly related to the experiments that we have. The remaining 20% will be the analysis of the results and the experiments, and engagement with stakeholders and presentation of results. Our partnership is quite wide. We have a lot of experts from different countries. As you can see from the slide, we have most of the experts related in hydrogen refueling stations, some from the deployment part, some from the research and development part. Most of them are working as partners related to the experiments, and some of them are helping us with the deployment. What is the background of the project? We have an increased demand for upscaling of hydrogen refueling stations, and the co-location of the stations between the existing gas stations occurred as a simplistic solution in order to have a faster uptake of HRS and its faster deployment, especially in commercial and residential areas. However, when we examined the issues, the problems, there was a lack of specific regulation in some countries. Actually, in the end, it ended up in most of the European countries. And co-location of hydrogen with conventional fuels was not foreseen in most safety regulations, not just related to hydrogen, but in general with safety regulation. And of course, the countries that did have some regulations had different approaches of how to manage this safety. The goal of the project was to bridge these gaps, close these gaps with identification of relevant current legal and administrative issues, and of course conduct the experiments to see what are the distances that need to be between the existing stations and the HRS, so we can know what is the safety standard, what should be the safety standard when co-locating hydrogen refueling station at the existing gas station. Of course, we need to have active engagement with the community. Here we are talking about HRS operator manufacturers, but also public authorities, which will be the ones in the end potentially deploying the stations themselves. And of course, we need to disseminate the project's results in the end. This is done through the work packages that we have. Most of the projects have similar work packages, but I wanted to show this picture in order to mention what are the most important work packages, the activities that we're working on that will help us get closer to the goals that we set up for the project. One of them is work package 1, which we begin with, is the detailed investigation of the current status, meaning that we wanted to examine what is the regulatory framework in as many countries as possible on the EU level, and what are the requirements and guidances, the safety measures and issues they are all having. Work package 2 and 3 are related to experimental data, where we want to see what are the issues in the specific in real life scenarios, if we can put it like that. So through experiments which are related to leakage characterization of the dispenser, hydrogen dispensers, and fire and explosions, also with the work package 3, where we have risk assessment. So with the combination of the three, we want to have specific results, outputs that can help us develop the guidelines that we can distribute to the stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders, which I mentioned, so public authorities, HRS, manufacturers, operators, which can help them have a faster uptake of hydrogen refilling stations in co-location with existing stations. So if there is no regulation currently in some countries, then with our guidelines, the guidelines that we develop, it can assist them in developing the projects with the specific safety measures, distances, some mitigation measures and similar, and move forward without waiting for the regulatory framework to get on hand with the project. And of course, in the end, we have engagement where we want to communicate with all the relevant stakeholders, not just providing them with the experimental results and feedback, but also getting their feedback from their side, whether we are on the right track with these experiments, with the analysis, with the assessment and the guidelines in the end. So the guidelines can be approved somehow on the EU level and become, I wouldn't say a norm or regulation, but a guideline that will help the whole EU level status get a faster uptake of these refueling stations. So just going through all of the work packages, all the activities one by one, the most important ones. We start with the research into permitting requirements that I already mentioned. And the goal here was to collect the specific information on requirements, rules, conditions, standards, and safety measures applicable at national level in EU countries. We wanted to gather as much member states as possible, but we got feedback from 14 European countries from 14 different national organizations and experts. And they assisted us with providing answers to the survey, to the questionnaire that we put in front of them about this, the rules, the conditions, and the regulatory framework. We did the analysis of the inputs that we got, and we managed to separate the inputs between three types of countries. One where there is no regulation on refueling, hydrogen refueling. One where there is regulation on hydrogen refueling, but is related to some other regulatory framework, such as CNG, LNG, or similar. And of course, in the end, we had the countries which had specific regulatory framework for hydrogen and how to use it, not just for hydrogen refilling stations, but for multi-fuel stations, which also had gas stations. Of course, in the end, we are going to update this deliverable until the end of the project, so we have more information when new updates come, so we can update our deliverable with it. And we would like to have feedback from other countries as well, so we can have the broader scope in order to get more coverage with this work package. The second work package was work package 3, which was related to risk assessment and guidelines development. So when we began working on this activity, we had three configurations of hydrogen refilling stations defined with fuel distribution from 60 to 300 grams per second. So we considered ready to deploy on-site H2 production with high capacity station. The preliminary and detailed risk assessment that we did in the beginning was related to literature overview, but also modeling. And we did the preliminary list of safety barriers, followed by main causes of leak on H2 dispensers, consequences of H2 leak on dispensers and manage the H2 dispenser risks. So we wanted to observe what are the risks that can happen at the HRS and also how to mitigate them. Of course, next steps are following the second activity, which is related to the experiments in work package 2, where we did some of the experiments which were defined within this first initial modeling, and where the modeling will be updated with the results that we get from the experiments. And of course, in the end, we will develop the recommendations, this guideline for safe implementation of H2 dispenser in a multi-fuel context. So which will cover also safety barriers, separation distances, ATEX regulation, and similar. In terms of the experiments, we had two approaches. One where we examined the leakages, clouds, and ignition. So there is a lot of that our colleagues did here, which are experts in the field. But the end results, you can see all of the modelings, all of the testings here in the pictures. But the final results that we got is that our colleagues developed a rather predictive tool to propose a failure database, which can help specify, actually not specify, but think in advance, expecting which failures could be, according to risk assessment, which could be more expected and which less. Of course, there were other results, such as that large flammable clouds could be produced in case of medium leaks. Ignition may be considered very high probability for catastrophic rupturing. And in the end, safety barrier should activate extremely fast. When I say extremely fast, we are talking about milliseconds, which we also got the results, the specific timings, which would need, which are needed to have the ignition of safety barriers in order to mitigate the consequences of explosions. The other part was related to fire and explosions. So we wanted to see if there is an explosion, what are the results, what are the effects of it. And you can see on these two pictures, which were actually the experiments that we conducted, when we have a spark during the emission, during when a vent is open at the HRS, at the nozzle, what the explosion looks like in specific situation. So we wanted to see what are the consequences of failure scenarios demonstrated in the previous activity and outlined in the risk assessment in the work package 3 in relation to fire and explosion hazards, where we not just simulated the similar breakaways and similar failures, but we also got a result what needs to be done in the guidelines in terms of safety distances and measures. For the next slide, I wanted to show this. So this is maybe a shorter slide, but what were the risks and challenges that we occurred? As you all know, we had the COVID-19 pandemic. I wanted to mention this because most of our research was related to experiments, and the materials and items that we received from our suppliers. During the COVID, we had the issue of not receiving them on time. And in the end, we had to extend the project activities because, as I mentioned, we did a lot of explosions and experiments. And the equipment that we needed to have was quite crucial. But luckily, there is a lot of experimental literature available, which helped us put up a skeleton of the results of the outputs of the deliverables, which we in the end fulfilled with the actual experimental data, which happened afterwards. But of course, that didn't stop us in achieving the goals of the project. So we are nearing the end where the experimental data is finalized, and we are now in the process of its analysis. And we want to use it. So not just the raw experimental data, but the guidelines in the end, which will use the data to assist member states, the public authorities, all the relevant stakeholders in implementing AFIR goals, you're all probably familiar with the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, which has specific goals until 2030, which in the end ends up in the uptake, in the increase of refueling stations that need to be deployed on European level. With these guidelines, we want to help the member states in speeding up this uptake, trying to bypass the slow uptake of regulation on each country national level. Of course, we want to develop safety measures and standards for multi-fuel context hydrogen application, which will assist also the standardization bodies in developing technical specification in specific standards, which might be useful from our standpoint, from the project standpoint view, because we had the specific experimental data which showed specific results. Of course, the impact, the results of this exploitation will be achieving our goals, which we're all hoping to get there. And of course, unification of safety measures and standards on EU level so that we avoid each country having specific regulation on its own. And in the end, we don't want to stop there. We also want to have feedback and inputs for further development, for further research, in order to gather the information that we couldn't potentially manage within the project activities, which occurred during the project itself, which might be helpful for future projects so they can follow up our results. In terms of communication activities, we have our website. We have several of the webinars, but I wanted to present the website on its own because there we have all the public deliverables and some of the slides and recording of events and workshops where you can see what is the status of our project, but also we uploaded there the state of the art of hydrogen refueling stations. We uploaded the document on permitting requirements. We're going to upload the guidelines. So all of the documents that are relevant for the stakeholders that might help them in the end deploy their HRS faster and with more safety measures, of course. The next one we have actually, the next activity we have next week, which is the event, which I would actually like to invite you. And the reason I'm doing that is because we are going to have stakeholder engagement there, where we expect to get feedback on our experiments, on the data that we provide, that we show and present, so we can modify and update our deliverables and outputs so they can be better and help more stakeholders than is potentially currently possible. This is it from my side. I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have, I'm not sure if we have currently some questions, but you can always contact us at our project email. And hope to see you next week at the European Hydrogen Week.
Thank you, Dinko. Thank you very much for the invitation. We will be there as a crowd next week for your event. To answer about questions, so I remind the audience, feel free to ask a question to the speaker. For this, go on Google, type Slido, then with the hashtag, type clean hydrogen in one word, select the session Pre-Normative Research and ask any question, or you scan the code that you see on your laptop now. Dinko, excellent presentation. As well, project manager for large project deploying cars, buses, and also trucks, and too often permitting issues for the hydrogen refueling station are the big obstacles, even though they are using a dedicated hydrogen infrastructure. So now let's imagine the level of complexity when you have a multi-fuel refueling infrastructure. You mentioned the little existence or no existence of the failure database. Perhaps in the section for the question, we will talk about HIAD, so Hydrogen Incident and Accident Database. Let's see later. For now on, we route ourselves at home, let's say. We look into the introduction of hydrogen blends and their effect on home appliances. And to do so, Mr. Patrick Milin from ENGIE will explain to us the project THyGA. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that. I hope you can see now my presentation.
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to talk today. Indeed, today I would like to discuss about hydrogen, but hydrogen blended with natural gas and very, I would say, daily use, which is used in the houses and the commercial buildings. The THyGA project stands for Testing Hydrogen Admixture for Gas Applications. It has been, oops, sorry, going to the next slide. It's a call published in 2019, which aimed at exploring the knowledge gaps and the opportunities in terms of safety and comfort to blend hydrogen and natural gas in the distribution grid for use in domestic houses and commercial end uses. By commercial, we mean everything like hotels, like restaurants, cooking, and so on. So you can see that the scope of the call is quite large. And for that, we brought together a very dream team of research centers in Europe. As you can see on the map on the right, we were 9 partners in total. So 5 laboratories in charge of the testing part, which is the core of the project. I will come back to that a bit later, but in the 3 years we spent on the project, we tested around 100 appliances for all uses, which is quite huge, and we shared this burden by the 5 labs, which are the THyGA ENGIE in Germany, GasBE in Belgium, DGC in Denmark, and ENGIE in France. Nonetheless, we also had another lab in France, which is a CEA, which was in charge of non-combustion tests. They assessed the potential use of indoor installation, the piping, basically, but also some of counters with blends of hydrogen or natural gas. The goal really was to disseminate as much as possible data to the manufacturers, but also the wider public. And for that, we had to make sure that everything we built in these 3 years, meaning the test protocol, the way we brought results to send technical committees, was relevant for them. And for that, we were lucky enough to have 2 manufacturers joining the adventure: Electrolux in Italy and Thermea in Netherlands. They were here to make sure that everything is really relevant from the manufacturer point of view, from the industry point of view. When I say relevant, I mean that the results not only had to be built together with the industry, but also we had to make sure that the vulgarization, the information we wanted to look at was not only research, but P&R activity, which is today's topic. So it was very important for us to have their inputs all along the project. The GERG is the European Gas Research Association, was in charge of all activities linked to communication dissemination and was very useful for us because of their very large network of association. Well, basically, the context when we started the project was that hydrogen, as you know, is a very promising energy vector, sorry. And what we were asked to address was the impact of blending hydrogen and natural gas in the gas grid, and to see how new end-use equipment would deal with this blend. When I'm talking about new end-use, I'm talking about boilers, cooking hobs, ovens, but also CHP, gas heat pumps. But not only new equipment, also what was installed on the field, which is around 200 million residential and commercial gas appliances. So when we blend X% of hydrogen, how do they deal with that in terms of safety and comfort and emission? The initial target was to deal with these blends up to 60% of hydrogen in natural gas. It was the initial target. As you will see later on, it was today 4 years ago, and it changed a lot because the energy field changed, the perspectives on blends changed. So mainly we had to focus on below 40%. What were our objectives? First, and very important, we had to close knowledge gaps related to technical impacts on residential and commercial gas appliances. We were there to understand what had been done in terms of testing, in terms of desk studies, and see where we could provide some impact by providing test results, experimental analysis, and not only for the member states or the associations or research centers, but also to manufacturers. And you will see that it was very important for us all along the project to have that support. So we have a very strong advisory panel group, including around 40 manufacturers, but also associations, which made sure that everything we were doing was communicated and discussed with their members in order to have as much impact as possible. The goal, in fine, was to support the standardization activities. As I said, we had manufacturers, but we also had direct contacts with 10 technical committees on gas use. So we contacted around 12 technical committees. We had members working in them to make sure that they could have access to our reports, our test program, and so on, and also to get the feedback. We had a test protocol to apply. We submitted it to the technical committees to see if they saw gaps of things or results they wanted to dive into. And in fine, again, we had to clarify the acceptable hydrogen percentage that could be dealt with by new and existing appliance. As you will see at the end of the project, it's feasible, but we have some conditions to reach it. I wanted to highlight three main results about the project. So the project is now finished. So actually, we are in the phase when we are disseminating our test results, our reports, waiting for feedback. So in all the three slides you will see, we are on 100% regarding the technical actions. Doesn't mean the project is ended, because we also have to make sure that the data gathered is used, and we have to answer questions we could have. Basically, as I told you, the core of the project was to test around 100 appliances. Why 100 appliances? Because in the sense of gas use for residential commercial, you have dozens of different brands of models, so hundreds of technologies on the market. It was impossible to be extensive on all of them. So we had to make, I would say, packets of appliances according to their use. For example, boiler is a kind of segment we used. Water heaters is another one. But even within these clusters of appliances, we have subcategories directly linked, in our case, to combustion technologies. We have fully premixed technologies. We have non-fully premixed technologies. We have atmospheric boilers. So we had to deal with all of that to be as extensive as possible. So there you have very summarized data on all of the testing we made. All in all, we selected around 60 different segments of appliances, and the goal was to test at least one appliance for each of them. Then we had to make some choice. Of course, we tested extensively boilers and cookers, because this is the mass market compared to other technologies like CHP or gas heat pumps, even if there are their perspectives in the future. But we have to make some choice. What was important also is that we involved manufacturers in the advisory group panel, but also directly in the project, because they were asked to provide appliances so that we could test them, and they were with us all along the testing phase, meaning that when we had results, we exchanged with them. Was it okay? Are the settings good? What do you think about the results? And it was important both for them and for us. We had their manufacturer point of view on the relevance of our test, and they also had access to testing they would not have made today, given the perspectives of blends. So it was very important, this win-win relationship, because everybody gathered knowledge, and it's very important in terms of P&L activities, I think. As you can see on the two tables, we have really summarized lessons on the testing on the different segments we analyzed. Globally, what I want to highlight is that when we blend hydrogen and natural gas, up to 20%, at least, we have almost no impact on efficiency. It's quite good for boiler premix, because we increase condensing possibilities, for example. And globally, it's stable for the other kind of appliances we selected. Emission globally decrease. Of course, we replace hydrocarbon natural gas by H2, so we decrease the CO. And we were having doubts about NOx, because the hydrogen flame has a higher temperature, so we were expecting increase of NOx, but actually no, because we also increased the air excess for most of the appliances, which compensated the higher temperature of combustion from hydrogen. So therefore, all in all, we had a quite positive impact by decrease of emissions. So it was quite very important for us because it means that there is a meaning on the field for these appliances. And then what you have on the right is another table, is what we deem feasible, like blends of H2 in natural gas for each of the segments. And what we want to look at here first is safety. Safety was the target of the project all along. If we don't touch safety, we stop, we don't go further. Doesn't mean anything to have a nice flame if we have a safety issue. So that's why you have different lines here, safety. And we also identified some mitigation possibilities to increase the acceptable percentage of hydrogen blended in natural gas. So that's why you have this second line here for some technologies. All in all, until 10%, we didn't see any safety problem at all. So it's quite huge for us because the perspective of blends today are basically below 10%. So it means a lot for our industry here. But we also saw that we could find problems at higher rates for some appliances, not all of them. Some were not tested so high because we did not have the agreement of the manufacturer, for example, and so we had to respect that. And in between, sometimes we need mitigation actions. Mitigation actions are not compulsory to be technical. We don't have to modify the appliance, but in that case, for example, for fully premixed boilers, it is an operational action to make an adjustment, which is the manual setting by the installer of the air-gas ratio. So you can see that all in all, we did not look only on appliances from the manufacturer point of view, but also by all of the industry, which has to install and exploit them on the field. And most of the action we have to deal with are more about that, manipulation once the gas appliance is installed. The other target of the project was to support standardization activities, of course. You saw that before we tested on 100 appliances, which is quite huge because it's one of the widest test campaign we had on this field for end-use appliances for natural gas in Europe. So we provided a lot of data to the same technical committees we were linked with, but also to manufacturers. What was very important for us, and I will talk about that a bit later, was to have to align with the same technical committees way on working on blends. And some of them were actually quite advanced on the topic, rather they went further than us actually. We had 3 years to build results, and some of them decided to go further. In 1 year, they built some reflection about some thoughts about gas gases, about test protocols. So we had to make sure that the results we provided were not unaligned with what the technical committees were doing, because we deemed they were right in their approach. So we had to actually discuss a lot with them to make sure that all along the project, what we brought forward was aligned with the standardization activities, in order not only to support those who are working today on blends, but also those who are not working today on blends. For example, some technical committees on boilers wanted to have standards or technical specification out by 2022. Some other technical committees, like cooking hobs, didn't start working until today. So we had to provide the results for both of these technical committees. Otherwise, we could make some discrepancies in the impact of the project. So therefore, we had to focus on taking data from the technical committees we were working well and provide them to the others in order to link the different risks linked to the gas appliance regulation, the basis for standardization, with what would be the impact of natural gas and hydrogen blends. Sorry. Lastly, standardization for new appliances. But what we had to deal with was the stock of appliances already installed, as I told you, around 200 million appliances. So we had to work on a kind of roadmap to understand what was the perspectives regarding the liability of these appliances. As you can see on the left, even if today we start replacing existing appliances by appliances certified by 20% of hydrogen, by 2050, almost we will still have appliances already installed today because they have a very long lifetime for some of them, and there is no requirement today for appliances adapted to blends today. So they will be commercialized until 2030, for example. What does it mean? It means that the real issue is not only the new appliances, but the existing stock. And so that was important in the test campaign. We tested not only new appliances, but also existing appliances. And these appliances were not certified for even a small percentage of hydrogen. So what does it mean from a manufacturer point of view? If there is an issue, who takes responsibility? And that's the whole point of the liability issue we identified in the project. So we had to discuss with many member states or representatives. And we see that each country has its own way to deal with that because it is a national issue. It's not a European issue. Each of the countries have its own approach to deal with existing stock. And so one of the recommendations of the project was to basically work on that, if possible, collectively. I will give you an example. In Italy, they are working to assess blends of hydrogen to natural gas up to 6%. So they are working with associations of manufacturers for that. In France, it's 2%, but some of the results from one country could be used by the other, and respectively. So it will be important to favor common discussion. The second point was about adjustment. As I told you, it's an on-field practice. Not every country has it allowed, so it's also something which is national. And finally, we also had some delay ignition problem on really specific appliances. This is I would say, minor issue on the stock of appliances, but still we have to find a methodology to assess that. And this is going further than the project. It is the next step to allow for the high-scale experimentation. When talking about the risk, challenges, and lessons learned, I could also have talked about COVID. It was very impactful on the planning of the project. How do we discuss? How do we get appliances? How do we test them? But finally, we had some delays also in the project, but we managed to deal with that. Regarding PNR activity, I thought that it was more interesting to focus on what does it mean PNR activities. In our case, it required a lot of flexibility because, as I told you before, some technical committees started to work on H2 ready certification even at the beginning of our project. So before we started producing results, so we had to align with them. It was also discussed in some regulation, like eco-design and labeling. We had some manufacturers roadmap providing some prime mover initiatives on certification also. We also had some notified bodies with their own protocol to certify appliances. And DSO and TSO didn't have the clear answer about the percentage of hydrogen acceptable in the gas grade. What did it mean? It means that we had to readjust the initial target of the project to make sure that we fulfill the impact we looked at. First, we had to readjust the THyGA target of percentage of hydrogen. Initially, we had to deal with 60%, but we readjusted this target below 30% because it was really what manufacturers expected. Then we had to adapt the content objective of our raw package 4 on standardization to better suit the needs of the stakeholders. As I told you, for example, manufacturers for boilers already had results on blends. So what they wanted was not us to do the same. They wanted us to go further. And that's what we did. We changed our test protocol to add specific tests for them, like delayed ignition, as I told you before. And it allowed to feed more data to them, even if they already had a lot. And some other technical committees didn't have nothing. So we had to start from scratch to give them as much data as we could. So really, as I've said here, the main challenge for us was to find a good balance between our initial target, what we wanted to do, and how it could be used by the same technical committees and manufacturers. In terms of exploitation and expected impacts, for exploitation, what was important in our project was to have as many results as possible available. So then 80% of the deliverables are public. And we also had around 15 workshops, 12 workshops, sorry. They were also all public and the replay is available on the website. The goal was also to disseminate through conferences and technical papers as much as possible. But as I told you, our main target for exploitations were the advisory people from the advisory panel group, the associations for manufacturers, the manufacturers themselves, and also some technical standards that that helped us reach the targets in Europe, but also in Japan or America, were interested by what we were doing. Very important for us, the link with the same technical committees, as you can see here. And we also had very strong links with other European projects all along the plan, the 3 years. Really important for us was the link with the GERGE-SEN standardization project. The GERGE was tasked by the SEN to work on the knowledge gaps regarding blends for all sectors regarding natural gas. And the timing was good. The project was only 1 year, while ours was 3 years. So when they started, we already had a lot of data to provide them to identify the knowledge gaps. And when they finished, they could provide us with a list of things we had to explore. So it was very, very impactful for us because it fed our work plan. And in terms of impact, we fulfilled all 4 impacts expected from the call. So we established what percentage of H2 could be implemented with the limitation for some of them. We worked on existing certification and the test gases. And we had a lot of recommendations for EN or well, mainly EN standards for drafting new standards or applying new. And finally, the general goal was to improve knowledge on the effect of blends on burners types. And that's what we did through the very expensive test campaign. And finally, all of our work is available on the website, so you can find the access right here. You can also contact us directly, of course. What maybe I can tell you also is that the work is not finished. We are expecting a standardization mandate from the European Commission, which means that all of the scientists will have to work again on this. And so we expect THyGA to have a kind of second life because we will have to come back with our report, provide them as much information as we can, and discuss that with technical data. So the adventure still goes on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick. What I keep as a very outstanding feature of your project is once you've done all the analysis, fact-based test on the 100 different home appliances, and you have shown that there was no detrimental effect when the blend was below 20% roughly. It's how you have established good cooperation with the technical committees and the standardization body so that there is an expectation from your result. And it's not, if you want, a big book of experimental result, which is stocked on a library somewhere. But no, it goes into the industry, into the sector. Perhaps during the question and answer session, you could elaborate on this best practice, how to establish the link with TC and standardization body. Thanks. Sure. Now we move, or we dive into the hydrogen pipelines, into the gas grid. We'll hear from the project HIGGS and the impact of hydrogen blends on the gas grid. To do so, Ms. Vanesa Gil from Fundación Hidrógeno Aragón will explain to us what HIGGS is about and which results have been achieved. Vanesa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. So I will try to, just a second, try to share my screen.
Perfect. We hear you, we see you, and we see the presentation.
Okay, great. So thank you so much again for the invitation. This is about, just a second, because I cannot see myself. This is not good. Here. Okay, I have the challenge to explain you about the project HIGGS and beyond time. So I will do my best. This project started in 2020. So it was in fact a 3 years project, but with an extension, we will finish this year. We are almost completed. 95% of the implementation is done. And we are just finalizing some latest characterization and also about the roadmap, let's say, right? Or which are our conclusions of the project. But this is about a project fully funded by the Clean Hydrogen Partnership with a maximum contribution a bit more of 2 million. And this project is on the frame of the topic that it was to focus on the systematic validation of the ability to inject hydrogen at various admixture levels into high pressure gas networks in operational conditions. Okay, so yeah, so this project we are 6 partners. Aragón Foundation, located in Spain, we are the coordinators of the project, and also we assembled the test facility that you will show later. Also, we have 2 more partners from Spain, Tecnalia and Redexis. And then we have from Switzerland, OSG, DVGW from Germany, and Eric in charge of the communication and dissemination activities. The goal of the project, basically, HIGGS aims to, or the idea was to pave the way to the decarbonization of the gas grids and its usage. By covering the gap of the knowledge of the impact that high levels of hydrogen could have on the existing infrastructure of the gas network. But not only on the infrastructure, meaning the materials of the material pipelines itself, but also its components and its management. So how we did this? We had specific objectives, mainly 3 of them. The first one was to map the technical, legal, and regulatory barriers and enablers. The second one was testing and validation of systems and innovation. And finally, the techno-economic modeling to develop operation strategies. This is what it was achieved so far. And we have the 4th, let's say, a specific objective that is almost on the way to be accomplished, and this is about defining a set of conclusions as a pathway towards enabling the injection of hydrogen in high pressure gas grids. So before I continue, maybe try to dive into the results, or just to provide an insight of the results. I think that I brought today a video, so we can maybe place the video here and you will see which is the facility that we have commissioned in our institution. So please, if you could do that. Thank you so much for the video. So mainly, and now I go back to here. We have let's say, two main experiments or we had in this project. The first experimental testing campaign was focused on trying to assess the tightness. Okay, this was so far it was completed. So we tested 4 different compositions or admixtures, 20% of hydrogen, 20 plus impurities, and also 30%, and finally the 100%. So the campaigns consider monitoring the pressure of the lines, and this was corrected with the temperature and with the compressibility factor of the gas, as well as the hydrogen composition, of course. So the trend, it was stable, except for small leaks, we could say, in specific cases. In any case, less than 1 normal molar liter per hour we could see this. In case of the leak, we also can conclude that hydrogen does not permeate and the methane remains in the line, so meaning that if the gas leaks, everything leaks, okay? So in conclusion, we could say that it was quite successful, this kind of test. Regarding the second experimental testing campaign, this was done on steels. Okay, in this case, again, this is something completed for the same kind of admixtures, and test on the steel primarily include the use of different specimens, we could say. First one is a strength specimen or sample, specifically C-ring and 4-point bend, as well as fatigue pre-crack specimens. All of them have been tested in the 4 conditions that I already told, and the micrograph or the pictures that we have here shows that, as an example, the characterization of in-concrete specimen of the sample X70, this kind of steel in the 30% of admixture of hydrogen. We could see that no embrittlement phenomena was observed for any campaign, so meaning that no apparent damage appears in the stressed areas of the C-ring or the 4-point bend specimens. And furthermore, the advance of the crack of the CT wall specimen was not quantified and remains, we could say that remains stable on the after 2000 hours. The 100, in addition, the 100 campaign includes a complementary laboratory test. And this is called the SSRT test, in which changes can be seen in the mechanical properties of the steels when are in service, either in air or hydrogen under pressure. So specifically with regard to the changes in the UTS value, and therefore in the possible transition from a ductile fracture to a more brittle or to a more brittle one if in case of embrittlement phenomena appear. Yeah, this would be, I would say, everything related to this. And now we move to the techno-economic. I will check my time. Yes, techno-economic modeling. This is also something or one of our activities in the frame of the project. The techno-economic model was focused on studying the intersection of 2 networks in the Central Europe. The network has been or was characterized with the current natural gas flows in order to calculate consumption and operating cost, laying the basis of the model. Once defined, the modeling consisted of calculating the properties of the network at various hydrogen concentrations in progressive, of course, increments of 20, 30, and 60% until reaching the 100%. The entry of hydrogen was studied under two different conditions. The first one was the entry of the system is already as mixture in the entry nodes. And the second option was the hydrogen is injected locally at various points in the network. In both cases, we consider winter and summer scenarios. And the model considers also the use of the membrane technology to recover the hydrogen that is transported. So the graph on the left consider transport cost for different mixture levels. And the prediction is in line with the European hydrogen backbone scenarios. And the one on the right, the plot on the right, includes the cost of when the membrane technology is included in this calculation. And of course, we can see an increase in the cost due to this point. So now going further with the risk challenges and lessons learned. We could see that it was difficult regarding the information that was available on the European high pressure gas grid. Why? Is because the TSOs were either not contributing with data due to confidentiality issues. So in this case, we used public databases to validate and extrapolate our results. And then also the second point here that we wanted to highlight it was the delay in assembly and maintenance intervals of the R&D platform. So we needed an extension of the project, and especially also the failure that we had in a gas booster of the testing platform, that it was reported in the Helen platform, was an issue that a new plan was assessed in order to recover this delay, and also the tests were run in static mode at some point. Also, acquisition of network data for simulations. There is not a standardized method for such task, and it's very difficult to obtain solid data from TSO. So we simplify the model to pure methane instead of natural gas. And finally, clear gaps in standardization towards hydrogen. So there is obvious there is a high dynamic process in Europe that is making difficult to make timeless statements. And the gas package has also complicated this blending scenario in high pressure grids. So we, in this way, we adapted to the latest trends, and we try to accommodate those TSOs still willing to blend into this. Just to finalize dissemination activities. Regarding dissemination, what happened so far? I think we attended more than 50 conferences, also some workshops and events were attended. There we have several deliverables on material testing, 2 of them right now, public techno-economic analysis, also 2 of them, and the potential of hydrogen injection into the gas grid has been already published in our website. What is planned? Well, next week we have the closing conference during the European Hydrogen Week. So next Tuesday, the 21st of November. For those of you that are willing to join us, we will be in Brussels. Well, not myself, I apologize for that, but the deputy coordinator of this project, Javier Sanchez, will be there. And also we will present our project brochure with the HIGGS results and will be published on the 21st of November. And finally, I think about, yes, this is the last slide about exploitation plan and expected impact. We had 6 key exploitable results identified in the frame of this project of different nature. So from experimental results, recommendations, and modeling results, horizon results, booster model C, and business plan development service. We were assisted by them, so we were very, very happy about that. And the business model developed for the testing platform it was also included as one of those. So I think that this is everything from my side. So thank you so much for your attention, and I will be very pleased to make any, to reply any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Personally, I was positively surprised by the smart solutions you have put in place to circumvent the TSO limited collaboration in the project, even though they would be involved once H2 blends will be injected into the gas grid. We do have 4 minutes, not more, for questions. So if we go quickly to the question slide, please, Leo. I would kindly ask the second one. What are the best way to reach out the standardization bodies with the accumulated knowledge from your project? And perhaps we could hear from you, Patrick, how you did it. Was it formal, informal, active?
Well, we were quite lucky in the building of the of our consortium because actually we had members in almost all of the technical committees we had to address, because we participated to the discussion and so on. So to liaise with them was quite easy in that sense, that they were interested in THyGA, and we had the opportunity through a specific member of the consortium to share information. So we shared the test protocol, we invited them to events, we asked for liaison for one of the technical committees, formal liaison. And all in all, it helped us a lot to build this good relationship we had all along the project.
Okay. Any feedback from other speakers? Dinko, Brendan, Vanessa?
Yeah, I can
No?
maybe mention
Yes.
that it was all of the above that you mentioned. So constant communication, inviting them to events, trying to. We have also partners that are present at the meetings for the standardization bodies. So we're trying to get them to present the results there, and we are trying to get the results there as much as possible so they can. The point of the project and the results is for them to use it. So we are trying to present it like that in order for them to make their life a bit easier.
Okay, thanks. We'll go back to this question slide, if you don't mind, Leo. And we'll ask the one about norms versus innovation to Brendan, e-SHyIPS. How to avoid the early locking in standards for new technologies that will be introduced into the maritime sector, the hydrogen?
I think that this is always a difficult issue, specifically when you have rapidly changing things. Also, something we've seen with the constant advancement of the IMO standards, which has been an ongoing activity since the start of our project. Primarily, I think that the best way of handling this is through close international cooperation. Up and foremost, since most of the decisions ultimately in regards to IMO will all go through flag states. So having an international collaboration, in our case, Norwegian Maritime Authority, has been quite insightful and useful. But also a large portion in stakeholder engagement. So trying to engage with a wide range of different stakeholders, including researchers, industry representative, and policymakers. And this has been able to kind of hopefully facilitate and expand on the understanding, the potential trajectory of the technology, and avoid any premature standardization.
Thank you. Very clear. On your side, Vanessa, any comment on norms versus innovation or collaboration with standardization body?
Well, in our case, we did not have so many, let's say, connection in this regard. but I think that it's obvious this is something quite important, and that at the end our findings should be implemented in a pre-normative or so. To be close to them is quite important, but challenging, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would like to congratulate for your presentations. The slides will be available. There will be a report about this European Hydrogen Research Days. You have sent invitation for the Hydrogen Week for the project that will be present next week in Brussels. Thanks a lot.